Hi everyone, welcome to Professor Long's Lectures in Anatomy and Physiology. I'm Professor Bob Long. If you're watching these videos, you know that they're intended for use by students who are enrolled in my anatomy and physiology classes at Del Mar College. So if you're enrolled in my class, learn what I cover on the board, what I write, and what's in your note set, what's in your list of things to know for lecture and lab. If you're not enrolled in my class, your instructor may cover different models, different features, different structures, go into more or less detail. So you need to cover the material the way that your instructor likes for you to cover it. I hope you find my videos helpful in understanding that material because I take a very baseline fundamental approach, set the fundamentals soundly first, then we can add details over time. Now, if you find them helpful, please hit like and subscribe, or at least hit like, so the more feedback I get, the more I'm going to be willing to make more professional version of these videos. Now, we're going over the laboratory portion of our digestive system. I have a model here that shows the entire digestive system. The digestive system is a very large organ system with many moving parts to it. So, we're going to cover several videos in order to do all of these structures. If you're following along on the list of things to know, if you're enrolled in my class, we're going to start on page 23 and start covering the material. Now, in order for you to see the entire digestive system, I like to draw it out first. I'm a very visual guy, and I believe that if you can draw and label all these anatomical structures, you're going to make hundreds on your tests, or very near that. So you should practice drawing everything out as if you had to teach it without any models. Well, I want y'all to see what the closest representation to the real thing we can find is, which are the models that we're going to use, so that when you do see the real thing in the field, you can make sense of what you're looking at. Now, my drawing of the digestive system is essentially going to be this model, but one of the things that you'll see is as our digestive system, as the digestive tract, also called the alimentary canal, runs through our body, once we get past or get to the stomach, it starts to get kind of coiled up or piled up. And it's essentially like a garden hose. If I had a garden hose that was 75 feet long, or let's say I have a 25-foot garden hose, because that's about the length of the digestive tract, between 20 and 25 feet. If I laid it all out, it would be 25 feet long. We'd have to be 25 feet tall. But then our bones and muscles wouldn't work very well as lever systems and things. So in order to compact all of that 25 feet of tubing into your body, it gets all piled up like coiling your garden hose up in a small spot. That length provides a tremendous amount of surface area. The whole goal of the digestive system is, as we consume other organisms, either plants or animals, and I know some people, oh, meat is murder. Well, so is salad. Salad's murder too. You killed some lettuce and tomatoes. But nonetheless, when we consume those organisms, they're made out of the same four organic compounds that our body are made out of: carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids. We break those down into the individual subunits so that we can absorb them through the lining of the digestive tract. The whole point is, if you put something in, if I swallowed this pen lid, it would come out the other end looking like a pen lid, okay? I would never absorb it. We have to digest and break down these large molecules into small enough ones that they fit through the channels in the cells lining most of our digestive tract. And so, in order to increase the likelihood that we could absorb as much material as possible, the tract is very, very long. I like to think of it in these terms. If I had a conveyor belt, and let's say I have a conveyor belt of 10 feet long, and I have one that's 150 feet long. And magically through some window, the conveyor belt's going to roll out towards you and fall off into a big empty chamber or a trash can or a dumpster. And I'm on the other side of this wall dumping things onto the conveyor belt, and as they pass you, you can pull what you want off of the conveyor belt. If I have students shoulder to shoulder for 10 feet, or I could take the same stuff and dump it on a 150-foot conveyor belt and have a lot more students there, everything that I dump on the conveyor belt that you want to keep, you guys could pull off the conveyor belt on both sides. And then we're going to add everything up and divide it equally amongst everybody. And I'm over here dumping bags of money and watches and iPods and, MacBooks and valuable stuff. And every now and then I might dump some, a plate of half-eaten food or some cat poop or something. Well, some of the stuff you're going to want to pull off the conveyor belt and keep, the good stuff. all the other trash you want to get off into the waste bin at the end. And once it's gone, you can't recover it. So, would you want the shorter or the longer conveyor belt, so that if I miss something, if it's going by too fast, at least someone else will get that bag of cash. And the amount of good stuff, so to speak, that we can absorb is going to be much larger than if we had a small conveyor belt. Well, that's the good stuff, is the nutrients. All the trash is all the waste that we cannot use. And so as you cram something in your pie hole, as it goes through the tract, the first part of the tract is going to digest it and break it down into stuff that can be absorbed. And then from the middle to near the end of the tract, we're going to be pulling as many of the good things, the nutrients and ions and water molecules, all the valuable stuff out. And whatever we don't remove ends up falling out of the system. It's literally similar to that scenario. Now, the small and large intestine are piled up. They're the longest part of the entire tract. I'm not going to draw them all coiled up initially. I'm going to draw sort of just a straight line. It's not really like this, but I really want you to see all the parts of the digestive system in a linear fashion. So when we cover it in lecture, it will make a lot more sense. So if I start up here, this would be the nose and the mouth. We have what's called the oral, also called the buccal cavity. And a few of the things on the list I'm not going to label on my drawings, but we would also have the labia, the lips. We would have our cheeks and our tongue and our gums and our teeth. We're going to go over the gums and the teeth in a little bit. But the oral or buccal cavity, which is connected with the nasal cavity to a tube, and a short section of this tube is called the pharynx. We've covered the pharynx with the respiratory system, but we're going to include it here. And of course, the pharynx would break off and go to our lungs, and this would be the trachea in the front, but the rest of this tube is called the esophagus. When I get past the esophagus, we have this pouch-like structure that we call the stomach. And the stomach has different divisions to it. We will cover the areas of the stomach. And then the tube starts to coil up on itself. And there's a really long portion, the longest part of your digestive tract. And then it gets thicker in diameter, or larger in diameter, but shorter. And then we get to the exit. All of this tube here is called the small intestine. All of this tube is called the large intestine. And the large intestine is also known as the colon. The colon is the large intestine. The very last part of the tube where it straightens out is called the rectum. And then, of course, there's the anus at the end, okay? And this tube is called the digestive tract or the alimentary canal. There are some accessory structures to digestion. They're not part of the tract directly, but they add to the digestive contents. And I'm going to put those organs on here. Sitting over here next to the stomach is a large structure. Most of the models have it in brown, which would be the liver. Sitting way over here, sort of posterior to the stomach and a little inferior to it, is this organ called the pancreas. The pancreas adds some digestive enzymes to the tract so we can continue to digest food. Now there's a little bag that sits underneath the liver that's like a storage pouch. It would literally be on the inferior margin of it. And that the liver itself has a couple of tubes that fuse into one. They wrap around the small intestine and they're going to dump some digestive contents. And that tube shares the same opening as this tube from the pancreas. And they will both dump fluids into the digestive tract. Now, the enzymes that the pancreas dumps into the digestive tract are what we consider to be expensive enzymes. And what I mean by that is proteins are hard to come by in nature. And you got to catch another animal and eat it. And if you ever watch any of these survival shows, they're always craving protein, 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 protein and fat, protein and fat. And We need to digest proteins, break them down into individual amino acids to replace all the proteins that our cells are using. Proteins are used as enzymes and structural components, but they are broken down and replaced constantly. If I'm not consuming protein, I will break down the old ones but not be able to replace them. My body won't function very well without them, and we fall apart. The pancreas adds a lot of these proteins called enzymes to the digestive tract. And those proteins, we don't want to lose them if there's no food in the tract to digest. So there's a little opening where this tube, it's called the pancreatic duct, we're going to learn it later, but where that tube and this tube meet, there's a little muscle that pinches it off and keeps it closed so we're not losing pancreatic enzymes. The fluid that's made by the liver is a stuff called bile. If you recall, when we recycle red blood cells, they get broken down into bile and dumped into the digestive tract. Well, if I close off the opening, the bile starts to back up. And as it's coming out of the liver and backing up this way, I got to do something with it. And so it actually goes into another tube that ends up inside this little bag, and that bag is called the gallbladder. The gallbladder, also called the cholecystic organ, but the gallbladder and the liver will add bile to our digestive contents. The gallbladder stores the bile and concentrates it by absorbing some of the water. Bile is filled with some fats and some salts that help us break up other fats so that we can absorb them. We'll talk about that chemistry and biochemistry when we do the lectures on this. So now, one more accessory structure I want to point out. At the junction where the small and the large intestine meet, there's a little finger-like pouch that hangs off, and we call that the appendix. So your liver and gallbladder are up here in the upper right quadrant, also called the right hypochondriac region. Your your appendix is down here close to your right hip and the left iliac or the right iliac or inguinal region. And the appendix actually has some purposes. Although you can live without the gallbladder and the appendix, they can be removed if they become infected. Now, the last thing I want to show you is that the small intestine itself and the large intestine really also, as well as the stomach, have different regions. But the different regions of the small intestine are important in understanding what's happening in the digestive tract. So I'm going to point those out. The first area is very short, and I'm going to label that area part A. The second area is longer, that's part B, and the last area is the longest of the three. And part A of the small intestine here is called the duodenum, or some people say duodenum. Okay, you can say duodenum or duodenum. And which one is more appropriate is dependent upon you. If you vacation in the Caribbean and eat tomatoes, or if you go to the Caribbean and eat tomatoes or whatever. It's duodenum, duodenum, it doesn't matter. The second section that I labeled B is called the jejunum. And then the last area that I labeled C is called the ileum. So the small intestine has three sections: the duodenum, the jejunum, and then the ileum. The duodenum is connected to the stomach, the middle section is the jejunum, and the ileum is connected and dumps into the large intestine. So this is sort of a linear view of the entire digestive tract. And if you look at this model, you might start to see some of these structures. You can see the oral cavity up here. You can see the labia and the teeth and the tongue. Then I can see the pharynx here, which we covered in great detail on one of these models. It's a close-up. I can see the esophagus. All of this tube here is the esophagus. I can see the stomach, this large pouch here. And then this tube that ends up being flesh-colored is all small intestine, all piled up. It's about 20 feet long, 20 to 22 feet. Okay, now, actually it's the whole tract is about that. But anyway, if you look at the large intestine is this gray structure here. And they cut some of it open, and we've removed a piece of the large intestine here so that you guys can see behind it. But the large intestine, the small intestine, the ileum, would dump into the large intestine here. It would come up as what we call the ascending colon. It would come across here. That section is missing, called the transverse colon. And then we have the descending colon here. There's another part that's shaped like the letter S called the sigmoid colon. We'll cover all of these on another model. I can see the appendix here. I can see the rectum and the anus there. I see the pancreas with its pancreatic duct. I can see the liver and a piece of the gallbladder and some of the tubes that I talked about. Now, there's a great deal of detail with each one of these organs. This is just a broad overview. So make sure that you learn the parts of the digestive tract this way, and then we'll look at them in more detail in the next few videos. So I hope that was helpful. I hope you learned something. I hope you had as much fun as I did doing this. Now do it till you can't stand it. Do it till you understand it. Do it till you can draw it and teach it to someone else like I just did, and you'll be ready to make a great grade on your exams. Remember, if you can draw this stuff out and teach it without looking at your notes, and that takes a lot of practice and a lot of repetition, but you will make a much better grade on your test if you learn to draw everything and teach it to someone else without pictures and models. If you can do this, you're going to ace it. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.